So within our little family unit, we have really strong opinions on what our favorite Christmas books and movies are and the worst Christmas books and movies are. So my kids wanted to help me with a video. This was their idea to share what we think are the books that are worth your time and the movies that are worth your time and the ones that we think are not. So while I don't want to spend a lot of time on the books that we don't like, I am going to share them so that you get a feel for kind of what we're looking for in books so that you can decide whether some of our recommendations are ones that would fit with your family. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with adult books. So I've read a lot of Christmas books, so like Debbie May Comer, Ann Tyler, Jenny Colgan, for instance. So it's hard for me to find kind of the light, fluffy Christmas books that I enjoy. I am reading a book right now by Heidi Swain that's called Sleigh Rides and Silver Bells at the Christmas Fair. But so far it's keeping me entertained, and so maybe she is a good author for kind of those light, fluffy, kind of romance, but also heartwarming and have meaning as well books. So fingers crossed, because I have not been fond of Debbie May Comer, Ann Tyler, or Jenny Colgan, sorry to say. So that's one of the first books that I wanted to share that I didn't like was Christmas at the Bookshop. I've read a couple of Jenny Colgan's books and I like them, but the Christmas one just felt very trite and done before and just was not something that I really enjoyed. So I like to go straight to the classics for Christmas. So this is The Christmas Carol, and I also am a believer in the version of the book that you get. So for instance, for Christmas Carol, I have this lovely illustrated edition, illustrated by Everett Shin, and it has these beautiful like pen and ink drawings that are on the side, just sketches, but then there are also just these beautiful colored versions all throughout the book. And so it just brings the book alive in a way that a well-illustrated book can. Christmas Carol is one of my all-time favorite novels. I love Charles Dickens, so this is one of my favorites. Next, for a classic, I have I Saw Three Ships. This is by Elizabeth Goudge. If you've watched any of my booktube videos, I am usually mentioning Elizabeth Goudge in them. I am trying to make my way through all of her works, and this is the story of a little girl named Polly who sees three ships that land in the harbor near where she lives, and there is a bit of a mystery to this and some kind of missing persons, and it's so short, and it does say 8 and up, and so I think a middle grader could read it, but it has a pretty deep significant meaning, and so I think this is a perfect stocking stuffer for the adults or very mature readers in your life. Another book that I love is Rosamund Pilcher's Winter Solstice. So trigger warnings for this. There are adult relationships that are with older people, and so it is outside of marriage. They've kind of been there, done that, and so it's nothing that's like a flippant relationship, but there is some outside of marriage relationship building, and there's also alcoholism and death as well in here. So definitely not a book that is, light reading, but I love Rosamund Pilcher's ability to have non-blood related family that, they start as friends and they become family, and then there is blood family involved. And so she just kind of unpacks these huge sweeping family dramas, and that's what this is. And it's set in Scotland, and just a lovely, lovely read for Christmas season. Then next I have A Christmas Memory by Truman Capote. So there is also One Christmas and the Thanksgiving Visitor. So this again is not a light reading. It is very slim volume. It's 3 stories in this one book. But just because it's thin does not mean that it's an easy read or even, I don't think, appropriate for young children. It's autobiographical in nature of Truman Capote, who I think had a pretty difficult childhood, and he befriended an older woman who, in their family, I guess she maybe had some processing delays or some sort of cognitive disability, and he, as a child, befriended her, and they were both kind of outcasts in the family. And these are just stories that he relays, and it's just a very stirring story about him, and just one that I like to come back to each year. So next, for an adult devotion, I have Watch for the Light, and this is by a whole bunch of different authors. So we've got Ann Dillard, we have Henry Nouwen, we have Kathleen Norris, who I love, Madeleine L'Engle, Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Martin Luther, C.S. Lewis, Philip Yancey, T.S. Eliot. So a lot of different authors, and each day it's written, it's almost like a article that is written. This is by Dorothy Day, and they're pretty long until you get to the next one, and it goes all the way from November 24th until January 7th, so it goes all the way to Epiphany. I shared in my TBR list video that I'm reading one that is similar to this with the structure, and so far I like it, but I will say this still is my favorite devotion, and I have read many Advent devotions from Lee Strobel and N.T. Wright, Tish Oxenreider's devotion, Paul David Tripp. So those are some, just to name a few, and they have not ever really kind of hit me, as well as Watch for the Light. One more category that I wanted to mention for adults is novella. So I just recently read Megan Quinn's Resting Scrooge Face, very short story, and I gave it 3 stars, and I think that was generous. It was such a short story. I don't even know if you could call it a novella, but I think the struggle that you get in a novella, especially a Christmas one, is you are looking for a connection, and a lot of times it's redemption, right? A la Christmas Carol. And in such a short story, it's hard to develop a care about the characters. Like, do you really care after 50 pages what happens to someone? And one of the novellas that I have read that I enjoyed was Holiday by Gaslight, and that is by Mimi Matthews. I read it as an ebook. The cover is so beautiful, and I enjoyed it as far as a novella goes. So I would recommend, if you're looking for something that is short, to read that. Okay, next I'm going to move into the middle grade section. There are a lot of books that are middle grade that we really enjoy. So my kids, as I mentioned, had a huge hand in determining what we're kind of sharing are ones that we've enjoyed and ones that we haven't. So first, let me just get the ones that we did not enjoy out of the way. So the first one is Vanderbeekers of 141st Street by Karina Yanglasser. The Vanderbeekers, especially in the homeschool community, are so well loved, and we just really did not enjoy that book or even really that series, but the first one is specifically a Christmas story, and so it just wasn't something that we really enjoyed so much, so not a favorite. We also did not enjoy The Best Christmas Pageant Ever. That is by Barbara Robinson, and I feel bad saying that because I recently saw where I think Austin Channing put that book up as one that she loved, and the daughter wrote in and said, "Oh, my mother would be so happy that you loved it so much." And I was like, ooh, we didn't really like it that much. Sorry. But I just could not get into the bad behavior of the kids. And it's funny because, I see right now a lot of people who are saying like, oh, I can't stand this movie because the kids behave so badly. but I like this one, and the kids also behave badly. Eloise is another one where I have always felt like she's just kind of bratty. So anyway, I don't want to dwell on not liking, what we don't like, but behavior for me is something that I look for. And again, I make, allowances in other areas for kids that maybe someone else thinks is behaving badly. So a couple more. Nancy and Plum by Betty McDonald, we did not like. This is the lady who wrote Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle, and I picked this up thinking it was Mrs. Piggle-Wiggle-esque, and it is not. It is a very somber, serious story, and I have, most of my recommendations for adults have that seriousness in them, but for middle grade, I'm really kind of trying to distance from that and really just soaking in the heartwarming positivity. And this, while it ends well, is not that. So there are two girls, obviously, Nancy and Plum, and they live in a boarding school. Their uncle has put them in this boarding school. And they are treated so poorly. People are taking their presents, there's food scarcity. They finally are allowed to go to school, and I think the teacher starts to realize that there's something going on. But anyway, as you can tell from this, they escape, and it's just not our favorite story. The next one is so sad to say, but Maggie Rose by Ruth Sawyer. This is her birthday Christmas. So Maggie Rose is this adorable little girl, but she lives in a family that just really doesn't seem to care. The parents don't take care of the kids. They don't really work. They don't really clean up after themselves. But Maggie is this very diligent little girl. And she, I don't think, has ever gotten a Christmas present, for her birthday, because I think they're similar time frame. And so she decides she's going to work and save her money to be able to have a feast for her family. And then her money gets stolen. It's just really difficult to read. And again, much like this one, it ends well, but you just have to slog through so much sadness that it just kind of feels like, wow, is that really giving me those Christmas vibes that I'm looking for in a middle grade book? The other one is a phenomenal book, A Place to Hang the Moon by Kate Albus. I recommend this book highly, but not as a Christmas book. It does end at Christmas, and so it's a great book, but just not meant as a Christmas book. It also has a lot of sadness in it, as well as food scarcity. So those three books, not Christmas books, but these I think are good ones. So we have, my kids have chosen as the first and favorite book is Winterfrost by Michelle Houts. So we, in our homeschool, are big proponents of examining how other cultures celebrate Christmas. And one way that they celebrate for Danish Christmases is to have the arrival of tomtins. And these tomtins, you're supposed to leave them little gifts, and they take care of your family for you in ways that you don't even see. They're also called Nissa, Nisse. But this is by far my kids' favorite. They read it every year. We listen to it as an audiobook for the years when this was too thick for my kids. So I cannot recommend this book high enough. Next, one that you probably have heard of, but that is the story of Holly and Ivy. This is the story of a girl who is an orphan, and she wishes for this doll in the window, which is Holly. And Holly needs to escape to be able to get to her girl. I'm just trying to find this. So there is anthropomorphizing of the doll, but it's just a really cute, serendipity kind of story in a very slim book. And this, again, is a book that my oldest will read every single year. Next is The Children of Noisy Village by Astrid Lindgren. There are also picture books that have some of these stories pulled out of them. And so this is the same lady who wrote Pippi Longstocking, and it's just a really cute story of a Swedish village. I think they're Swedish. Yeah, Swedish village, and just the goings on between them. And it's really cute. They have grandfather who is, I think he's blind. There's just really cute, like here's one, The Big Snowstorm. It's just such a cute, wholesome story. Next, we love this anthology of all of the stories of the Little House books from Laura Ingalls Wilder. It has all of the stories as well as the Garth Williams illustrations from every single book. So we have read all of these books together as a family. And so it's just nice at Christmas time to pull this book out and strew it about and have my kids pick it up and to read the story of Mr. Edwards, who comes through during a particularly stormy Christmas. So just one that we, again, love to come back to. Next is Madeleine L'Engle's The 24 Days of Christmas. She has a series with this Austen family, but this one kind of got pulled out. It's, again, a very slim volume. Just a cute story, perfect for your early chapter readers because the print is big, has lots of big pictures. But just your typical trope of you have a pageant, you have a mother who's expecting, and a snowstorm. And I think this has been done before and will probably be done again, but Madeleine L'Engle does just such a great job, and it is just a marvelous addition to our Christmas book time. This is The True Gift by Patricia McLaughlin, who wrote Sarah Plain and Tall. This is the story of a white cow. It's a family who has kind of come under some bad times and kind of trying to again, have that redemption. And frankly, this one still can bring me to tears when I read it. This one is a little bit of a wild card. This is called The Children of Green No by L.M. Boston. I at first thought that this was kind of more of a fall vibe read because there is some supernatural occurrences going on, but Christmas plays such a big part in this that we have moved it to be a Christmas book. And so if you have not heard of this or read it, I would highly recommend reading it. It was written in, I think, the 50s, 1955. So very wholesome, sweet story of a boy who comes and lives with his grandmother and kind of unpacks the history of the house. This one's probably pretty well known, The Family Under the Bridge by Natalie Savage Carlson. I did want to still include ones that people may have heard of, just in case you haven't heard of it. But this is the story of a homeless man named Armand who lives in Paris. And then there is a family that also ends up not kind of having a place to live. And so they started to live under the bridge, and they met him. And he was kind of like, it's like this grumpy sunshine kind of trope, but with kids and this old man. There's gypsies. It's just a lovely found family trope done so well at Christmas. Snowbound with Betsy by Carolyn Haywood. This again is the story of a snowstorm that comes and they get snowbound and just all of the hijinks that occurs because of that. And it does have concern about, is Santa Claus going to be able to get through the snow? But again, just a wholesome Christmas story kind of book, and it was written in 1962. This one you probably have not heard of. If you've heard of it, let me know. This is called The Minstrel's Tree by Alan Shane. I actually ended up getting a signed copy of it, and it was published in 2001. So this, first of all, the artwork to me is so intriguing throughout this book. So you can see it's not your average, it's not just a picture book. There is a lot of text. It's a pretty, decently long story, but it does have illustrations throughout. This is the story of a family who decides they're not going to put up a Christmas tree. The ornaments hear this, and they decide that they are going to have this crazy adventure from the attic and make it down and get themselves into the tree as a Christmas surprise. So it's anthropomorphizing Christmas ornaments. There's a love story. There's adventure. There's peril from the dog. Peril. So I love this book. If you can find it used or at the library, I would recommend getting this to read. Next, whether you like this movie or not, this is the book that the movie was made after, and it follows it very closely. But it's illustrated by Tommy DePaola, who passed away, I think, a few years ago. Sad. We love Tommy DePaola in our house, and so I wanted to mention this book because it is illustrated by him and the story is great. The old movie is actually my favorite. I also wanted to mention the devotion for the middle grade, and that is All Creation Waits, and that is by Gail Boss. And I think she has a Lent one, which I haven't done, but I'm hoping to do it next year. But for each day, Gail explains what an animal is doing during the winter for taking care of itself. Like, for instance, one thing I remember is one of the days we talk about chickadees, and we learned that when a chickadee comes to your feeder first thing in the morning, they are literally gathering all of the food that they need to eat to be able to survive for that day. So there's no storing up. They rely on getting food each day to be able to survive. But she does that for all kinds of different animals, and they're animals that are for where we live in North America. And so we know them and we see them, and it's just a really godly way to focus on nature during the Christmas season. And so that's one of our favorite devotions to read. And then I wanted to just quickly go into the middle grade kind of mystery genre. And so Winter House by Ben Gutterson. I have read this. I love it. I'm actually reading it with my kids this Christmas season. This starts out with, I'm reading it, why can't I remember, Elizabeth. Elizabeth's aunt and uncle sent her away for Christmas to Winter House, which is a hotel. And there is a mystery here that she needs to solve. Let me see if I can find. So first of all, there are some really great illustrations inside of it. And then there's puzzles to solve. So it's doing the anagrams with the different letters. Each chapter title is an anagram, so you can see that. So I also love this cover. The Green Glass House by Kate Milford is also a mystery Christmas book. For murder mysteries, I just wanted to quickly mention Peril at Owl Park by Martha Johnson, and that's an Aggie Morton book. It's a cute murder mystery. Another murder mystery that I think moves further into the YA category is Thrice the Brinded Cat Hath Meowed by Alan Bradley, and that is Flavia DeLuce. That is one of his Christmas ones, and I read that out completely out of order, and it was fine. I didn't feel like I was missing anything. So if you're looking kind of for that cloak and dagger murder mystery kind of genre inside of middle grade or YA books, then those are two good options too. So for movies, there are just a few that I want to highlight. So we recently tried to watch Christmas Chronicles, which I really like Goldie Hawn and Kirk Russell, but the beginning of that movie where you have kids stealing cars and talking nasty and physical altercations. I understand they're trying to build a redemption story, but I just have a hard time accepting that kind of behavior as being an example that my kids see. Like, it was really shocking to see that that's how they were behaving. So I was not a fan of that. Now, I will say, in a video that I just did where I talked about how we like to settle in the 12 Days of Christmas, I said that we watch Home Alone. Kevin McAllister does not talk very well to his family, and there's a lot of violence in that movie. So you just kind of have to figure out what is it that you're willing to accept, what becomes a discussion, and what becomes, you know what, this just really isn't worth our time. So each family has a different threshold and a different level of what they accept, but for us, Christmas Chronicles is not a favorite at all. If you have not heard of Annabelle's Wish, I highly recommend this movie. Somehow we got this old VHS of this story. If you can find this at the library, it is so cute. So there is trauma where there is a barn fire and our main character does not talk after that. So when my kids were little, I would fast forward the barn fire. For the most part, as you know, you understand there was a trauma, but you don't see it. It's only been since my kids are closer to double digits that we have talked about and left that part in. So that is something to be cautionary about. But I cry in this movie all the, 100% of the time. So such a heartwarming, wonderful movie. And if you are looking for an alternative to the Nativity story, which I think is a good movie to show the birth of Christ and all of the politics going on. It is, however, violent, and it says that it's PG, but even with my kids watching PG movies, we are not going to watch this yet. We're going to wait until, I'm probably going to treat this more of like a PG-13. But something that we do watch every year is, this is called The Visual Bible for Kids, The Birth of Jesus, and it is a VHS. It has Kirk Cameron as the host of it. Oh, there, he's on the cover too. So this is like old school Kirk Cameron. It does say for ages 6 and up, but that might just be for kind of understanding what's going on. There's really, it keeps it very wholesome, and we watch this every year on the first day of Advent, and it's just a really great alternative to something that is a lot more hard-hitting. And if you're looking for something that's a little bit more secular in nature, something that we have watched is A Boy Called Christmas on Netflix. And I'm always kind of leery of what is on Netflix, but A Boy Called Christmas actually turned out to be really good. There are trigger warnings for like kidnapping, is probably the best way to put it. So you definitely want to preview it and not show it to like really little kids. But for us in our family with the age group of our kids, A Boy Called Christmas is a movie that we have really enjoyed. So I'm sure that you have opinions about this as well, and I would love to hear them in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time.